Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here, and the title of today's video is what you're probably seeing in a lot of places like the forums, YouTube comments, and such. It's certainly how I learned about this devblog being released. So, supposedly Superships are getting a bit of a buff, but are they really? We're going to go through the devblog, talk about the changes that they mentioned here, and discuss whether or not these are actual buffs to these ships. But before we go any further, guys, if you wouldn't mind, drop a like and leave a comment down below. Feeding the algorithm overlords is the way that YouTube works nowadays. It likes to see comments and likes to see your likes and your comments sacrificed up to them. So if you wouldn't mind doing that, that'll be very much appreciated. That's most of what the YouTube game is all about today. Also, if you weren't here yesterday, I do have the flu, so if I sound a bit odd and off for this video, that is why. And I probably will start this for, well, the rest of this week about. But anyway, let's go ahead and get into it. So link to this is in the description down below. If there's any artwork or images, I will throw them up as we go through them. But if you want to read along as I read aloud, there is that link for you. So let's go ahead and get on into it. So they state, changes to combat instructions, closed test 12.0. We're talking about future changes to the combat instructions mechanic. In update 12.0, we will be updating the interface and some of the settings tied to the combat instructions mechanic currently available to some superships. So they start with the Hanover. Number of adjustment firing salvos required to activate combat instructions reduced from 12 to 10. Satsuma, number of adjustment firing salvos required to activate combat instructions reduced from 12 to 10. Amount of time spent without firing on target until adjustment firing progress begins to decay reduced from 50 to 45 seconds. Rate of decay of adjustment firing progress increased from 16.7 per tick to 20%. And the Yushikov, which is the Soviet tier 11 supership, if you will. Super battleship, I should say. Number of adjustment firing salvos required to activate combat instructions reduced from 12 to 10. Amount of time spent without firing on target until adjustment firing progress begins to decay reduced from 60 to 50 seconds. Rate of decay of adjustment firing progress decreased from 16.7% per tick to 15% per tick. Okay, so are these really buffs? Well, in the case of the Hanover, it is a straight up buff. You only have to land 10 salvos near a target in order to activate its combat instructions. If you guys don't know how these combat instructions work, basically you have to, at least with most superships, the upcoming Pan American light cruiser line, you have to actually hit the target, but those aren't superships. Well, they kind of are, but that's a different video for a different day. You have to land shells near the target, which the idea in and of itself, I think, makes sense because it's like, that's how artillery works during the artillery age. You have to land shells close to the target. You'd basically be walking your shells in until you have them bracketed, and then you knew where you needed to aim and such. And that idea, I think, as a mechanic in game, is pretty sound. But the fact that they went in and gave it to these superships is something else. So anyway, for the Hanover, now you'll have to land 10 shells near the target, or 10 salvos near the target. For the Satsuma, you now only have to land 10 instead of 12, so there's a bit of a buff there. But the time in between those salvos, the other part of this mechanic is that you have to keep firing at the target. If you don't, then there's a little progress bar that's underneath the reticle, and that bar gets built up. So if you don't fire or don't land any shells near the target, that bar will start to decrease after a set amount of time. Now, with the Satsuma, that time was 50 seconds, but it's now been reduced to 45 seconds. So that's a fairly big nerf to it. I mean, it's a Satsuma, it's a battleship. It's got a longer reload time. It's not like it's a cruiser that's, spewing out shells every 10 seconds. So that's a nerf right there. And then the rate of decay was also increased too, from 16.7% per tick to 20%. So now when that bar starts to drop, it's going to drop by 20%. That's, almost 1/4 of the bar every tick. So that's a pretty harsh nerf to the Satsuma right there, after a admittedly pretty decent buff to the combat instructions mechanic there to the Satsuma. But overall, I would say this would be at the end of the day, a nerf to the Satsuma. A little bit, not a major nerf, but a nerf overall, especially with that tick being increased from 16.7% to 20%. So like that's literally, if your bar is almost filled up and you're at like 80%, you have what, 4 ticks before you're completely out of your bar now. So that's fairly rough. All right, and then the Yushikov. So again, like the Satsuma and the Hanover, the amount of shells that you need, well, the amount of salvos that you need has been reduced from 12 to 10. And then this one got the hardest nerf to its decay timer, 60 to 50 seconds. So you had a full minute to get that next salvo near the target on the Yushikov, and then it got reduced to 50 seconds. Now the Yushikov is still in development. It is in the, or I think it was offered up in the Lighthouse auction here not that long ago. So this could of course still change. The ship's still in testing, but a 10-second nerf is pretty substantial. And then it turns around and gets a buff to the rate of decay from 16.7% per tick to 15%. So overall with the Yushikov, I'd say it's more of a nerf because, no, actually no, I'd say it's more of a buff because you got the 2 salvos reduced and then the tick reduced by 1.7%. So I think it's a slight buff to the Yushikov overall. So all in all, I don't think these are massive buffs to these super ships. It just seems that like they're trying to standardize the combat instructions a little bit more, and 12 to 10, granted with the way that like games go nowadays, with how fast they progress, you may not be able to get too many uses out of those combat instructions. But I mean, this is the issues with gimmicks. You know, as the game progresses and ages, gimmicks eventually start to get either out gimmicked or they become obsolete over time. So you have to start making changes to them, and then who knows how these changes are going to affect the game. But super ships, again, like I've mentioned in yesterday's video, I don't really think they're healthy for the game. They lead to way more passive games, like you can see in the game in the back right now. A lot of teams, I mean, what are you going to do against a Satsuma that's got 8 20-inch guns and has a button that gives it a 30% boost to its dispersion, to where it can basically shove 8 20-inch shells into your ship if the guy playing the Satsuma has any modicum of decent aim at that point? So you just got to stay back and stay out of its range until it gets sunk somehow. Super ships that have decent design qualities, and ones that I'm more okay with are ones like the Patri, which is what I'm playing right now in the background, because they don't have these stupid gimmicks baked into it. They don't have an autoloader. They don't have these combat instructions. They're just kind of, like I was talking about in yesterday's video, just slight upgrades over their predecessor. The Patri's a bit more of a step up from the Republic to the Patri, but I mean, it is essentially just a Republic with another turret slapped on there, which I think would make more sense in a logical standpoint from a design principle. If you're trying to see, okay, this is what the tier 10 is, how do we go from this to the next iteration? I mean, realistically, if you want to talk about designs too, I mean, Patrick's kind of a better fit for the tier 10 slot because you get all sauce, and then this is like bigger all sauce. If they keep going forward, these super ships or tier 11 or whatever you want to call them, this is the design style that they need to go more with. Just these either logical next step in the previous tier 10 ships design with no stupid gimmick, autoloader, combat instructions, whatever. I mean, because again, like with the Patri, it's got a lot of the same benefits that the Republic has, and has a lot of the same downsides that the Republic has. It's a logical next step, rather than, again, these super gimmicky ships that we've been getting out of these super ship designs. But, yeah. So, either way, I don't think these are any major buffs to super ships overall, except for, like, the Hanover. But again, like Hanover, that's just like a damaged pinata. Most of the times I see a Hanover, which you don't even really see Hanover that much, which is odd because you think with the amount of people that like German ships, there'd be plenty of them going around. But when you do see them, they're normally just damaged pinatas. They're on fire all the time. They're spotted from the moon if you want to build into the secondaries with them. And the 14 kilometer secondaries are pretty nice, but again, in order to build into that, you gotta get spotted from the moon. So yeah, that's unfortunate for the Hanover there. But yeah, like besides that one, with the Satsuma and the Yushikov, I'd say it's not really a major buff or a major nerf, just some slight tweakage here and there when it comes to those ships. But anyway, guys, that's my 2 cents on this dev blog. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to drop a like, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. We're on our way to 45,000 subscribers, thanks to you guys, and that is awesome. I'm going to go take some more flu medication and take about an 8-hour nap. Hope you guys enjoyed, and have a wonderful rest of your week. Hope to catch you guys in the next one.